Karen's table demands lead to a lesson in respect. Reddit stories. Welcome to Silent Wars, where we bring you the most captivating and emotional Reddit stories. In today's video, we dive into a story filled with shocking twists, betrayal, and family drama that will surely leave you speechless. If you love these kinds of stories, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Silent Wars for more amazing content. Let's jump right in. It was a typical busy evening at the restaurant, and everything seemed to be running smoothly. The atmosphere was buzzing with excitement as we were packed with customers, eager to enjoy the seasonal special menu. However, the night took an unexpected turn when a woman walked in with her friends, demanding a VIP table. She insisted that she knew the owner and should be given the best spot in the house. At first glance, her demeanor screamed entitlement, and it was clear she thought she could get whatever she wanted. As I greeted the group at the door, the woman, who quickly took on the role of Queen Bee of the group, started talking about how wonderful the restaurant was, how there might even be celebrities dining that night. I listened patiently, and when she told me she needed a table for 6, I kindly asked if she had a reservation. Her response was shocking. "I didn't make one, but the owner is a personal friend of mine. He always keeps a table open for special guests like us." I had never heard of this woman before, let alone promised her any special treatment. Without hesitation, I decided to play along. I didn't want to confront her right away or embarrass her in front of her friends. I led her and her group to one of the VIP tables, usually reserved for high-profile clients. I apologized for the inconvenience and told them that the first 3 rounds of drinks would be on the house. They seemed delighted, believing they had pulled off some clever maneuver. I wasn't about to let them get away with it, though. Behind my smile, I had already devised a plan to teach this Karen and her entourage a valuable lesson. As the evening progressed, the women ordered multiple rounds of expensive drinks, ignoring the fact that their table was actually part of the VIP experience, which came with an exclusive, high-end menu. It didn't take long for them to become completely intoxicated on an empty stomach, a fact that I subtly took note of. After hours of eating salads and drinking heavily, the group was met with the bill, a jaw-dropping $4,000. Karen's attitude quickly shifted from arrogant to frantic. She initially thought there had been some mistake, but after going over the details of the bill and realizing it was accurate, her expression changed. The situation quickly escalated, but I stood my ground, calmly explaining that she had enjoyed an exclusive table and expensive drinks, and there would be no discounts. By the end of the night, the group was left in tears, scrambling to find enough money to pay their bill. They had learned the hard way that entitlement doesn't always pay off. The real owner of the restaurant was not who they had assumed, and in the end, their behavior had cost them far more than they expected. It was supposed to be a quiet, routine evening at the restaurant, but everything changed when a group of women walked in, led by a woman who immediately made herself the center of attention. She confidently announced that she knew the owner, and that she and her friends should be seated at one of the restaurant's VIP tables. Her arrogance was off the charts, and I could sense she was trying to use her supposed connection to get special treatment. As I greeted them at the door, I listened to her boast about the great reputation of the restaurant, claiming there were even celebrities dining that night. She acted like she was entitled to the best of everything, demanding that we seat her at a premium spot without a reservation. This wasn't the first time someone tried to pull this, but I was the one in charge now, and I wasn't about to let her get away with it. Instead of immediately calling her out, I decided to play along. I told her that while we had a policy of reserving certain tables for VIP guests, we didn't usually take walk-ins without prior reservations. But she insisted, going as far as to tell me that the owner had personally kept a table aside for her and her group. I knew something was off. I owned the restaurant, and I'd never promised anyone anything like that. I decided to lead her and her group to one of the exclusive VIP tables, the kind that usually cost thousands to book. I informed them that their first 3 rounds of drinks would be free and apologized for the wait, knowing they would be in for a big surprise later. As the night went on, the group began ordering more and more drinks. They barely touched their food, focusing only on the endless rounds of cocktails. I watched them drink and laugh, completely unaware of the fact that they were sitting at one of the most expensive tables in the restaurant. When the bill finally came, it was nothing short of a shock, over $4,000. Karen, as I'd come to think of her, immediately panicked. She tried to claim there had been a mistake, But when I confirmed the charges, she grew frantic. After unsuccessfully trying to make up a story about her connection to the owner, she realized she was caught. I calmly stood my ground, refusing to cut the bill or offer any discounts. By the end of the night, the group was scrambling for money, and Karen was left humiliated. The arrogance and entitlement that had defined her behavior earlier in the evening quickly faded. I watched as they scrambled for their wallets, ultimately paying the full amount of valuable lesson on how actions have consequences. The holiday season was always a time of high stress for my restaurant, but it was also when we saw the highest volume of customers. One particularly busy evening, a woman named Karen walked in with a group of friends, all in their 20s. At first, she seemed harmless enough, but within minutes, her attitude turned demanding. She told me she knew the owner and that she and her group should be seated at one of the VIP tables, despite not having a reservation. I smiled politely, though I knew she was trying to pull a fast one. I explained that we couldn't seat anyone without a reservation, but Karen was insistent. She claimed the owner always kept 1 or 2 tables available for special guests. The issue, however, was that I was the owner, and I had no idea who this woman was. But instead of immediately confronting her, I decided to let her continue with her charade and see where it went. I took her and her group to one of the VIP tables, the kind typically reserved for celebrities, and told her that the first 3 rounds of drinks would be on the house. I made sure to inform her that due to the high volume of guests that night, their food might take a bit longer than usual. Karen and her friends seemed pleased with the idea of free drinks and settled in without hesitation. As the night wore on, their behavior grew more entitled. They ordered more drinks, seemingly without concern for the cost. I overheard one of the women remarking on how pointless they thought my job was, mocking me for being a waiter. At that moment, I knew I had to teach them a lesson. When the bill finally came, it was hefty. The VIP table they were seated at had a special menu with higher-priced items, and their excessive drinking added up. The total came to over $4,000. Karen, shocked, tried to pretend the bill was a mistake, but when I refused to reduce it, her attitude shifted from smug to desperate. Karen then tried to claim that she had a personal connection with the owner, but I wasn't about to let her manipulate me. I called her out, telling her I was the owner and that she had no connection to me. In the end, Karen and her friends were left scrambling to pay the full bill. I didn't let their entitled behavior slide, and it was a satisfying moment. It was a reminder that sometimes the best revenge is simply standing your ground and not letting people walk all over you. It was one of those nights when everything seemed to be going wrong. The restaurant was packed, and I was running around trying to manage everything, greeting guests, checking on food orders, and making sure everything ran smoothly. I was used to the stress, but nothing could prepare me for the night Karen and her group walked in. Karen wasn't your typical customer. She stormed in, practically demanding a VIP table, insisting that she knew the owner. I glanced at her and thought, if only she knew. The thing is, I was the owner and this woman had no idea who I was. But I decided to let her continue with her act to see how far she would go. Karen wasn't just rude, she was demanding. She told me she'd spoken with the owner before, and that she and her friends should be seated at a special table. No reservations required. Of course, I had no recollection of any such conversation, but I smiled and played along. I led them to one of the VIP tables, one of the few we kept open for high-profile guests. I told her that the first 3 rounds of drinks would be on the house to make the experience a bit more pleasant. Everything seemed to go downhill from there. They didn't order food right away, but they drank. And drank. And drank. They quickly became tipsy, then downright sloppy. They were loud, obnoxious, and mocking everyone around them. One of the girls even made a snarky comment about my job as a waiter, questioning if I felt my life was meaningless. It was the kind of insult I had heard all too often from people like them, but it stung nonetheless. At that moment, I decided enough was enough. It was time for a little payback. I didn't immediately confront them, but I made sure they were in for a surprise when the bill came. The VIP table they were sitting at had higher-end menu items, including expensive truffles and oysters, which they didn't realize until it was too late. They were so focused on their free drinks that they didn't pay attention to the bills slowly stacking up. When I handed Karen the bill at the end of the night, her smile immediately disappeared. She went from mocking me to almost pleading, trying to find a way to get out of paying. She even tried to claim a connection with the owner again, but I was done playing games. I informed her that I was the owner, and I would not be lowering the bill. In the end, she and her friends scrambled to pay what they owed. The best part? Watching Karen's face as she realized she couldn't talk her way out of the situation. It was the perfect revenge. It was a night I'll never forget, an ordinary dinner shift that turned into a lesson in patience and justice. I had been running the restaurant for a few years now, ever since my parents retired and handed it over to me. Business had been booming, especially with the holidays just around the corner. We had a loyal customer base, and it wasn't uncommon for us to have a few celebrities stop by during the busy season. But I never expected the kind of scene that unfolded that evening. Karen and her group of friends arrived at the restaurant, looking for a VIP table. Now, VIP tables are reserved for special guests, usually those with reservations made months in advance. Karen, however, was different. She stormed in, claiming she knew the owner, which, unbeknownst to her, was me, and demanded that we give her and her group the VIP treatment, regardless of reservations. I politely explained that there were no open tables and that reservations were required. But Karen wasn't having it. She didn't just want a seat. She wanted to make me feel small. She kept insisting that I was being unreasonable, telling me that if I knew who she was, I'd immediately accommodate her. Her friends joined in, making snide comments about my job and belittling me. To be honest, I've had my fair share of rude customers, but something about her attitude pushed me to my limit. I knew what I had to do. I decided to play along, leading them to one of the VIP tables. I told them that their first 3 rounds of drinks would be on the house, hoping to calm them down. But as the night wore on, I could see that Karen and her friends weren't just enjoying the food, they were trying to provoke me, making comments about how my life must be miserable because I worked as a waiter. They didn't realize who they were dealing with. I kept serving them, but what they didn't know was that they were sitting at a VIP table that came with a much higher price tag than the average customer would pay. By the end of the night, their bill had ballooned to a shocking $4,000, and Karen, still acting as if she was entitled to special treatment, couldn't believe it. She tried to argue, even showing me some fake text messages pretending to know the owner. I called her bluff, and in the end, she and her friends were left scrambling for cash to pay the bill. It was a moment of sweet justice. Karen had come in expecting to get special treatment, but in the end, she left with nothing but a hefty bill and a lesson in humility. And I was left feeling vindicated. Sometimes, the best revenge is simply standing your ground. It was supposed to be a regular day at work, a normal Friday night shift at my family's restaurant. I had been managing the place for years, ever since my parents handed over the reins. Business was always steady, and the holiday season brought in a lot of customers. That particular evening, the restaurant was buzzing with energy. But little did I know, the night was about to take a sharp turn into an unforgettable encounter. Karen and her group of friends walked in, demanding a VIP table. I've worked in this industry long enough to know that VIP tables are reserved for special guests, people who book months in advance, or celebrities. But Karen, with her overly confident demeanor, claimed she knew the owner and should be treated like royalty. The trouble was, I was the owner and I had no idea who she was. I politely told her that there were no available tables, and all guests must have a reservation. Karen, however, didn't take no for an answer. She insisted that I must be mistaken, and that she was a close friend of the owner. To make matters worse, she told her friends that I'd be scrubbing toilets, or fired by the end of the week. It was clear that she was trying to belittle me, to make me feel like I didn't belong. I considered my options. I could either tell her the truth and reveal that I was the owner, which could embarrass her, or I could simply let it go. But after hearing one of her friends mock my job as a waiter, something inside me snapped. I decided to teach her a lesson. I led her and her friends to the VIP section, a prime spot usually reserved for high-end clientele. I told them the first 3 rounds of drinks would be on the house, and I assured them that I'd personally take care of them. As the night wore on, it became clear that Karen wasn't just looking for a good meal. She was trying to make me look bad. She even asked me if I thought my life was meaningless, just because I worked as a waiter. The nerve! I continued to serve them, knowing full well that they were about to learn a harsh lesson. When the bill arrived, it was a hefty $4,000, including a number of high-end dishes and expensive cocktails. Karen, in shock, tried to argue, thinking that I had made a mistake. But it was no mistake. I'd given her exactly what she asked for. VIP treatment with a side of humility. In the end, Karen and her friends were left scrambling for cash, realizing that sometimes the high road leads straight to the bottom line. It was a busy Friday evening at my family-owned restaurant, and I was doing my usual rounds, checking in on customers, making sure the service was top-notch. The restaurant had been bustling with energy for weeks, especially since the holidays were right around the corner. It was the kind of success I'd worked hard for after taking over the restaurant from my parents. I was determined to make it my own, to push through the slow times, and finally make it into something that could stand the test of time. That night, a woman named Karen walked in with a group of friends. They were loud and demanding from the start, looking for a VIP table. I've been running this place long enough to know that VIP tables are reserved for special guests, people who have made a reservation months in advance or celebrities. But Karen, with a smug smile, claimed she was a close friend of the owner and that we should give her and her friends a VIP table. The problem? I was the owner. She clearly had no idea who she was dealing with, and I wasn't about to let her walk all over me. But instead of immediately calling her out, I decided to play along. I knew what I was about to do next would teach her a valuable lesson. I told Karen that unfortunately, there were no available tables, but I could accommodate them if she'd like. She wasn't happy with that answer, of course. She started insulting me, saying that if I knew who she was, I'd never speak to her that way. She even said that she'd get me fired for not giving her what she wanted. That's when I realized I couldn't just back down. I had to stand my ground. I smiled and led them to the best table in the house, the VIP section, telling them that tonight the drinks would be on the house. I also mentioned that I'd be personally serving them, which made her and her friends feel like they were important. Little did she know, she was about to get a lesson she'd never forget. Throughout the night, Karen and her friends kept ordering expensive drinks and food, acting like they were royalty. But when the bill came, it was a staggering $4,000. The look on Karen's face when she saw the bill was priceless. She thought it was a mistake and demanded I fix it, but I calmly reminded her of the VIP treatment she'd received. She tried to argue, but it was clear she didn't have enough to cover the cost. In the end, Karen and her friends were left scrambling for cash, completely humiliated. As for me, I walked away with a sense of satisfaction, knowing that I had turned the tables on someone who thought they could take advantage of me. It was a quiet Thursday afternoon when my phone buzzed with an unexpected message from my mother. I hadn't heard from her in a while, and our relationship had been strained ever since I moved away and started building my own life. My decision to break free from the toxic environment I had been raised in had not been an easy one, but it was necessary. After years of criticism and neglect, I finally cut ties with my family and made my way to a new life. But now it seemed my mother was reaching out. Her message was simple but loaded with hidden expectations. Your grandmother is asking about you. Please just let us know you're alive. The words hit me hard, not because I was concerned for my grandmother, but because it was a reminder of everything I had left behind. My family, especially my mother, had never truly understood or supported my decisions, but they always wanted to keep tabs on me when it was convenient for them. They didn't want to mend broken relationships or apologize for the way they had treated me. They just wanted to feel better about themselves, as if knowing I was alive would somehow justify their actions. I hadn't seen my grandmother in years. She was the only one in the family who had ever shown me any real love, who had ever tried to see beyond the mistakes my parents made. I missed her, but I also knew that seeing her would mean reopening wounds I had worked hard to close. My parents had made it clear many times that they didn't care about my well-being, only about maintaining control. Now my mother's message felt like another attempt to manipulate me, to pull me back into their orbit. I debated whether I should respond or go back home, but deep down I knew the answer. I had built a life for myself, a life where I was finally happy. I wasn't going to let them tear that down with their guilt trips and emotional manipulation. I had come too far to let my past dictate my future. Instead of responding, I made the decision to move forward. I focused on my family, the one I had built with my partner, Kendra, and our children. We had our own traditions, our own celebrations. My new family showed me what real love and support felt like. That night, as I watched my children play and Kendra smile, I knew I had made the right choice. The family I had once known was gone, but the one I had created was thriving. And that was all I needed. Life is often shaped by the relationships we build, and sometimes that means making difficult choices to step away from toxic connections, even if they come from those we should trust the most, our family. It's a painful but empowering realization that we don't have to accept mistreatment or neglect, even if it comes from loved ones. The key lesson here is that true family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who nurture, respect, and support us through the ups and downs of life. As we grow older, we often gain a clearer sense of what truly matters: peace, love, and mutual respect. Choosing to surround ourselves with those who uplift us, who cherish us for who we are, can lead to a more fulfilling life. Life is precious, and we deserve to spend it with people who bring joy, not pain. Don't be afraid to walk away from those who don't value you, no matter their role in your past. It's never too late to create a new supportive family, one that makes you feel seen, heard, and loved. As we move through different chapters of life, our worth is not defined by the acceptance of others, but by our own self-respect and the relationships we choose to cultivate. Thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this intense Reddit story. If you want more thrilling content like this, make sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to Silent Wars so you never miss out on our latest videos. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you in the next video.